There is a word that adds 10 to 30% to the price of a watch. The same word adds a comparable premium to a gold bar. It does the same job on a bank account, a chocolate bar, a pharmaceutical compound, and a block of cheese. The word is not a brand. It has never been trademarked. No single company owns it. No single government created it to protect an industry. And yet it is the most valuable four letters in the global luxury economy, and every country on earth has tried and failed to replicate it. The word is Swiss, and the reason it works has nothing to do with Switzerland. Switzerland refines approximately 70% of the world's gold. Not because it mines gold, it produces almost none. It sits landlocked in the middle of Europe with no natural access to gold-producing regions, and yet it refines approximately 70% of the world's gold. Pamp, Valcambi and Metalor, the three refineries that process the majority of the world's bullion under London Bullion Market Association accreditation, are all Swiss. No other single country comes close to that concentration. At the same time, Switzerland makes watches. In 1970, 90,000 workers were employed in Swiss watchmaking. The quartz crisis that followed reduced that figure to 28,000 by 1988. More than 1,000 Swiss watch companies disappeared in 18 years. The industry lost more than half its workforce and fell from approximately 50% of global production to under 15%. During those same 18 years, the premium that buyers paid for the words Swiss made on a watch dial held. The label did not devalue with the industry. In the 1940s, Allied governments and Nazi Germany were at war across every continent. Both sides needed somewhere to put their gold where the other side could not touch it. They chose the same country. The Swiss National Bank received 1,200,000,000 Swiss francs of gold from Germany and 2,200,000,000 Swiss francs from the Allied nations simultaneously. Both sides trusted the same counterparty, in the same vaults, at the same time. Two industries in one banking system. The question is not whether this is a coincidence. It is not. The question is why nobody ever explains what actually connects them. Swiss banking secrecy laws were codified in 1934. The relevant events happened 250 years earlier. The connection is a community of people, the same families, who arrived in the same Swiss city within a generation of each other and built both industries from the same operating principles at the same time. Switzerland did not wake up one morning and decide to be the world's most trusted address for precision objects and financial instruments. The same people built both, and the reason those people ended up in Switzerland at all is one of the most consequential accidents in the history of global trade. In 1541, John Calvin's administration in Geneva prohibited the wearing of ornamental jewellery. The goldsmiths and enamelers who had built their trade on decorative objects lost their legal market overnight. And when they did not leave the city, they pivoted. A watch, Calvin determined, served precision rather than vanity, and it was exempt from the prohibition. By 1601, Geneva had established the first watchmakers' guild in the world. The city's entire watch industry was born not from entrepreneurial ambition, but from a religious ruling on acceptable objects. 144 years later, Louis XIV revoked the Edict of Nantes, the legal instrument that had protected French Protestants for nearly a century. Approximately 4,000 Huguenots settled in Geneva in the years that followed. Two distinct groups arrived simultaneously. The first were skilled Huguenot craftsmen and watchmakers from the French clockmaking trade, men with precision skills and no country in which to practice them. The second were Huguenot financiers who'd been operating private banks in France. Blocked from official positions across Catholic Europe, excluded from most professions, most public offices and most institutions, banking was among the few careers that remained open to them. They arrived in Geneva with capital, with established commercial networks across Protestant Europe, and with the same ethic the city's watchmakers already operated under: precision, reliability, probity. By approximately 1710, those Huguenot families had become Geneva's first prominent bankers. Lombard Odier, one of the oldest private banks in the world and still operating today, traces its founding directly to the Huguenot families who arrived after 1685. The watch trade had, over exactly the same decades, become the most recognized precision industry in Europe. Louis XIV then had to borrow money from the Huguenot bankers he had expelled, now operating out of Geneva, to finance his own wars. The king who generated the displacement became financially dependent on the displaced. One word ended up on the gold bars those bankers handled. The same word ended up on the watch dials their neighbors made. This is not a metaphor. It is the documented economic history of the most powerful brand word in the world. The trust both communities built in Geneva had a structural explanation that went beyond reputation. Switzerland was a country that had stopped going to war. A territory outside every major European military conflict was the only place where assets could sit without risk of seizure, confiscation, or devaluation through military defeat. Capital moved toward Geneva because Geneva was not burning. Alongside capital came a specific demand that the watch industry was uniquely positioned to answer. A gold bar could cross a border. A mechanical watch could cross a border when currency controls made paper money impossible to move. The same Huguenot community that built the financial infrastructure also built the portable store of value. Both industries were solving the same problem from the beginning: how to hold and transfer wealth across political instability. The Second World War made that trust legible. By the early 1940s, every major European currency operated under exchange controls, inflation pressure, or outright political risk. The Swiss franc held. Allied governments and Nazi Germany deposited gold in the same Swiss banks, not because Switzerland was morally neutral, but because it was the only financial counterparty both sides would honor when every other system had broken down. The Swiss National Bank received 1,200 million Swiss francs of gold from Germany and 2,200 million Swiss francs from the Allied nations. Both sides needed the same word on the receipt. The word carried 3 centuries of operational proof. The irony is that 30 years after the war ended, the Swiss banks that had inherited this trust signal came within one decision of selling it. The quartz crisis pushed the Allgemeine Schweizerische Uhrenindustrie Aktiengesellschaft and the Société Suisse pour l'Industrie Horlogère to the edge of insolvency through the late 1970s. Those two conglomerates between them owned Omega, Longines, Tissot, Hamilton, and Rado. A banking consortium took effective control of the Société Suisse pour l'Industrie Horlogère after its equity fell below 10% of its balance sheet. The same Swiss banks that had been built on Huguenot capital commissioned a plan to sell both conglomerates to Japanese interests. Nicholas Hayek, a management consultant based in Zurich, was asked to develop that plan in 1979. He refused. He produced what became known as the Hayek Study, recommending merger and restructuring over sale. The banks agreed. The two conglomerates combined in 1983. The banking consortium then offered Hayek 51% of the merged company for 151 million Swiss francs. He accepted. By 1986, the Société de Microélectronique et d'Horlogerie had revenues of 1,250 million Swiss francs, more than the combined debt load that had nearly ended both groups. The word remained Swiss. The banks had been prepared to transfer 4 centuries of accumulated trust to recover a crisis-era loss. Hayek calculated that the word was worth more than the factories, the debt, and the Japanese offer combined. He was correct. Swiss-made requires 60% of a watch's manufacturing cost to occur in Switzerland. A manufacturer can source the remaining 40% anywhere on Earth, stamp 4 letters on the dial and charge a premium no competitor in Japan, Germany, or the United States has ever been able to close. The Fédération de l'Industrie Horlogère Suisse estimated that designation adds between 10 and 30% to retail price on a technically identical product. A Tissot every time retails at approximately 550 Swiss francs. The same movement sits inside non-Swiss branded watches at approximately 380 Swiss francs. The difference is not engineering. It is 1,685. Every time you see the word Swiss on a watch dial, you are looking at the direct consequence of a French king expelling the wrong people in 1685. The bankers built Geneva's financial system. The craftsmen built Geneva's watch industry. 4 centuries later, the word they left behind is still the most expensive 4 letters a manufacturer can put on a product. Louis XIV created his own creditors. His creditors created Swiss made. You will never look at the word Swiss the same way. That is what this channel does. Every video on wealth in time starts with something you already knew and ends with the history behind it that nobody ever told you. I'll see you in the next video.